Right, good afternoon, everybody. Back here with another video for you all following the midterm. So we'll jump right into it. Today's going to be pretty big. It covers content from last Friday as well as today's lectures. I just didn't post one over the weekend, trying to give you all a break. So this one's going to be pretty heavy on the cards, but we'll get right into it. So we're going to start down in the blue link for gross anatomy. So if you have that deck, we'll start here. If not, you can skip ahead. And the two areas we're going to be are the pelvic cavity and the perineum. So in the pelvic cavity, these first few cards are a lot of bones. The only two that I activated because of there's just a lot of repeats are these two here, talking about the ischiopubic ramus, but more importantly, the pubic arch, which is a new term for us. But then right after the bones, when it gets into the gross anatomy of like the soft tissue and muscles and everything, all the cards here are good to have. We've already activated quite a few of them from previous blocks, but you can pick up the rest. So you can just grab those two up here if you want, grab this one, drag until you get the bottom and select them all. And then in the perineum, I selected all of them. These are all really good to have. There's a lot going down in the pelvic area, so all the cards for all the details. But that is it for anatomy. And then we're going to move on up and we're going to start at the top here in microbiology. So you're going to open up microbiology under first aid, and we're going to be in basic bacteriology to start. So the first section, and then we're going to go to subsection 7, I believe. Yep. And we're going to, I just want you to activate the cards that are new here. You should already have, I believe, everything else already activated from watching my videos. But if not, just prioritize the new ones here. So we're going to get the first four. And then there's one little error here. So first four cards, but then on this one here, the third, and it would be the fourth, but it changes it for you. But the third card, it's an aerotolerant anaerobe. So it's not an obligate, I think aerobe is what it puts, or anaerobe. So I just typed in aerotolerant anaerobe, and then I put obligate aerobe or aerotolerant. So aerotolerant according to our lecture. So those first four cards with that little edit. And then you want to come down to these cards here talking about obligate anaerobes. They're typically from the gut or the mouth. And then this one here, that metronidazole is a common treatment, and then clindamycin is a common treatment. And then Bacteroides fragilis is an anaerobe that can enter abdominal abscesses. That's a good one to pick up. And that is the rest for this section here. And I will say the lecture presented by Dr. Steinhauer today on anaerobes, there wasn't a lot of cards on them, specifically just really what was in this section here is all that was I could find. So not a lot, so study first slides for those. All right, we're going to minimize that. Ooh, minimize. We're going to go into clinical bacteriology, and we're going to be talking about the four, I guess, group genus species that Dr. Shermont went over. So Bacillus cereus is where we're going to start first. And you want to skip the first four and this third one from the bottom, but all the rest here are good to have. And then there's one I wanted to change here. Which one? Oh, yes, this card here. So this card number 6, it's class. It's a gram-positive rod spore forming an aerobic. I don't know what they mean by aerobic because it wasn't quite clear on the slide, but Dr. Shermont says they're facultative anaerobe, but I think he said they show up positive on an aerobic test. So I don't know. I'm just going to go with facultative anaerobe and then go learn based off his slides for this, but that's what he put. So if you don't want this card, you can leave it inactivated. But that is the cards you want for this section. And then Clostridia, we're going to break that down into each subsection. So botulinum, you want the first bunch of cards here, 8, 9, or 10. You just want to stop here when you get to the flaccid paralysis because this is a duplicate card. And then the food poisoning, we don't really need to know that it's a nicotinic or muscarinic receptor, but you do want to grab that it affects the peripheral nervous system primarily versus the central nervous system, because that'll help you with like when they give you a case on symptom presentation. It's a lot of peripheral issues versus central paralysis. And then coming down to the bottom, you want the last two coming up, skipping the third, then grabbing the next three there. Then we're going to move on to difficile. You want to grab the third card, skip the fourth, and grab this next chunk coming down to the what is the first line treatment. We can skip over that because we activated the card before it, and I have no idea what ROA means. And then you can grab the two cards following that, then skip the next two, grab the third up from the bottom, and then the last one. And then Clostridium perfringens, you want to grab the third card, skip the fourth, starting at the fifth, come all the way down, and then leave the last three at the bottom inactivated. Clostridium tetani, you want the first two, skipping the third, grab 4, 5, 6, skip 7 and 8, 9, 10, and 11, skipping this one here, talking about Renshaw cells specifically, that wasn't reviewed, but you do want to grab this card here, and then skip this one and grab the last 4. That is it for Clostridia. And then we're going to move on to Corneobacterium. And you want to grab the first 5, skip this card here, talking about the specific augurs, and then you want to grab this card, talking about ADP ribosylation of elongation factor 2, skip these 2, talking about, again, like the specifics of diagnostic procedures, grab the 3 going over the clinical presentation, the morphology of it, and then the vaccine, and then you want to skip this card talking about the MOA. Yeah, I don't know what that is. You want to grab the next 4 again, skipping this one here, talking about demyelination. Ooh, that word. Producing nerve deficits, and then grab the next 2, and then leaving the last 2 cards. And then our last one is going to be Listeria. You want to grab the first 3, and then you want to skip these next 6 cards. So this, I believe, would be card 10. You want to grab this one, and then I guess these 6 cards here, skipping this one here, but grabbing this one that the treatment is ampicillin, or it's one of the recommended treatments. Skipping 2 cards after that, and then you want to grab the rest except for the last 2. And that is it for bacteria, but we're not done with this video yet because we've gotten some anatomy and embryology. So we're going to minimize everything, come down to repro. So section 15 under first aid, we're going to open up embryology. And within embryology, we're going to start at 11 in the urachus. So these cards probably could have been helpful earlier, but I picked them up now because they will be on the final. And you want to grab, I guess, half of this section. So the first 9 cards you want to have. So everything talking about the urachus, and then when it switches to like the patent urachus, urachal cyst, or vesico-urachal diverticulum, these things, I left those deactivated because I couldn't find them in our lectures, and I can't quite remember if we went over those. So the first ones will be enough, I believe. I just noticed there's 2 levels. So you want the first one talking about urachus. And then we're going to skip down to section 17, genital embryology. And you want to grab the first 6 cards, skipping number 7, and then grab all the rest except for the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th coming up from the bottom. And then in 18, sexual differentiation, you want to skip the first 2, grab 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, skip 8 and 9, and grab 10. And then we're going to be in section 19. You just want to grab the first 3 here. That's going over some of the uterus abnormalities. Make sure I'm not getting lost here. And then section 20, you want to grab all of the cards here except for the bottom 6. So it'll be talking about, I believe these are a lot of homologs. Yeah, these are all that section. But these other ones down here, these are like the minor glands that aren't reviewed and covered. And that was in the section notes of Dr. Harden's lecture. So we don't need to know those. And then section 21, just the first 2 cards here. And then section 22, grab all 4. But we're not done. So we're going to minimize subsection 1 of, or section 1 of embryology. We're going to open up section 2 of anatomy. And we're going to open up gonadal drainage, and you're going to go into section 1 first, So the course of the ureters, you want to actually, never mind, there's no new cards here. Scratch that. This one, section the lymphatic drainage. I activated card 3 and I changed it to lumbar lymph nodes. I believe it said previously para-aortic lymph nodes. But that's not what was listed. And then the rest, there's more cards here, but they don't line up with what was put in the lecture. So if you want, you can change the answers. You just like highlight over here and retype the answer to what you want. I haven't decided if I want to do that yet, but they are here if you want to use them. And then venous drainage, grab all 3. And then we're going to minimize that. We're going to go into subsection 2, the female reproductive anatomy, and we're going to go into anatomical structures. We're not going into procedures. You want to grab all the cards here except the last 2, and then this one here in the middle, talking about a procedural piece that the round ligaments are clamped and divided as they enter during a hysterectomy. We didn't need to know that, but the rest here are good except that one and the last 2. And then we're going to minimize subsection 2, and we're going to go to section 4, talking about prolapses. So you want number 1, 3, 5, 6, 7, and the last one, 9. And then we're going to go to section 5. You want to grab all those cards there. And then section 6, male reproductive anatomy. You want to grab the first 6 cards. And then you want to skip 7, 8, 9. You want to grab number 10. And then you want to grab the last 2. And then we're going to skip over 7 because we didn't really talk about trauma, but we're going to go into section 8 and just the anatomy subsection of that. And we're going to come down from the bottom, and you're going to skip the last one, grab the next 2 coming up, skip the next 3 talking about somatic nervous system innervation, and you want to grab these 2 here talking about the sympathetic innervation. And I just want to make a note. So on the slide, it says the pelvic splanchnic nerves for, I believe Dr. Fracano gave this lecture. She had listed S2 to S3 for this, but I'm leaving it as S4 because that's what I believe Dr. Harden's lecture said was the pelvic innervation. So I don't think that's going to be a highly stressed point. And if it is, you could probably argue that the answer is one way or another, depending on what's available. And then here again, the hypogastric nerve is T11 to L2, but Dr. Fracano says it's the T10 source that is the sympathetic innervation for the ejection piece. So I just wrote that in parentheses just to remind myself, in case that's like a very specific question. But that is it for this section. And then we're going to go into seminiferous tubules. You're going to go into Leydig cells first, and you're just going to grab the first one. Sertoli cells, you're going to come down and grab the last card. And then coming up, there's 4 here in the middle, just these ones talking about tight junctions, and then the card following tight junctions talking about the Sertoli cell function. And then spermatogonia, you want to grab the last card. That is it. And that wraps up this video. So quite a few cards. So that'll hopefully keep you busy for the next couple days. And as always, thank you for watching and happy studying.